Swaggy Vets, attention! Right pace, forward!
You are now on the set of the Swaggy Vets show. We do it for the sisters, bros, from coast to coast. A place where it's safe to go to make sure that a soldier's stories are told. All around the globe, going worldwide, representing military pride. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
You should already be at the position of a 10 for them boys when they come out. The original first Swaggy veteran. And then you got that boy Big Pen. Hey man, salute me or shoot me. And if you ain't no vet, you better not talk like one.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Swaggy Vets Podcast. I'm your host, Big Pen. I got my co-host and my best friend here with me, first Swaggy veteran. What's up, my man?
What's going on, Big Pen? What's going on, Swaggy Vets? All our friends and family out there. How y'all doing?
Oh man, we got a really special guest today, man. We're gonna go ahead and get on into it. You know, coming to the Swaggy Vets, we're bringing a powerhouse guest, a retired Navy SEAL commander turned mindfulness and meditation coach from high stakes missions on the battlefield to teaching warriors and leaders how to master their minds. Jon's journey is all about grit, growth, and transformation. You don't want to miss this conversation with a man who lives on the edge and who inspires others to live with purpose. Please welcome Commander Jon MaCaskill.
I love it. Hey, thanks, fellas. Honored to be here, man. I've heard great things about your show, and I know it's been a process getting me on just because of my crazy schedule with kids and everything else. So I appreciate your guys' flexibility and your patience, but I'm glad that we're finally able to make it happen. So let's do it.
Absolutely, man. We're excited. So you grew up in kind of like two places, Louisiana and Africa, huh?
Yeah, man. So I was born in Cape Town, South Africa.
Wow.
And I think we moved from Cape Town to Johannesburg, South Africa when I was 3 or 4, and then left Johannesburg and moved to Louisiana when I just turned 7. And then the rest of the time spent here in the States as far as living. I've visited plenty of other places, as we all have, but yeah, living in the States.
Awesome. Now, what was the culture like from going from Africa to Louisiana?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was about the age of I got 3 kids, got a 8-year-old little girl, a 6-year-old little boy, and a 4-year-old little girl. And my 6-year-old boy was about the same age as I was when I was about to leave. And in South Africa, school, at least back then, I think it's still the same way, goes from January into December, right? That's the academic year. Whereas here in the States, we all know it kind of goes from August until May. So I started first grade there in South Africa. And this is when South Africa was still practicing apartheid. So it was a bunch of white kids in school, right? Did 6 months of schooling there and then moved to the States, to the deep South, to Louisiana, and was thrown into a class of multiple races. And, you know, being a 6-year-old kid, 7-year-old kid, that was actually awesome to see, because I had not grown up in that. And my parents didn't agree with apartheid. That was, one of the reasons that we left South Africa was they did not agree with that. And then the other one, kind of funny, is they didn't agree with the draft. And my young brother and I would have been drafted after we'd gone through school. And so the ironic part is they came over here to escape the draft, and I voluntarily enlisted in the Navy. But yeah, as far as the culture, man, I embraced it. I think I fell in love with the fact that it wasn't just a bunch of white kids in the class, right? It was people from different ethnicities, different religions even. And I liked seeing the diversity in the classes. And then, grew up the rest of the time in Louisiana from first grade all the way through high school. And then when I graduated, I enlisted in the Navy because I knew that I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. And I'd run track and cross country in high school and had been part of this kind of brotherhood, really tight-knit group, did everything together. You know, we ran together, we went to school together, partied together. As much as you party in high school anyway. And then And then, I wanted to be part of a brotherhood again. So the military was kind of calling out my name. I'm sure you guys felt something similar. And so, I graduated in May of 1996. And that summer I was at boot camp for the Navy. And lots of culture. I don't want to say culture shock coming from South Africa to Louisiana, but lots of cultural changes or differences. But I was happy to see that.
Yeah, because Johannesburg, going from Africa, I imagine the culture, like you just said, is a lot different than coming here to the States. I've watched some other stuff with you, and you said The Rock inspired your enlistment.
Yeah, man. So, what was that? Mid 90s, The Rock, the movie came out, and it had, a SEAL team going into, what's the prison off of San Francisco, Alcatraz. That they go into Alcatraz to save some hostages that are in there, and all the things that they were doing looked pretty cool. And then the music was cool. The movie was kind of fun. Looking back at it, it's kind of cheesy, but back then when I was in high school, it was cool. And so, that movie kind of made me think about going into the SEAL teams. When I first thought about joining the Navy, I was like, well, I want to be a jet jockey. I want to fly jets, F-18s, back then F-14s as well. And that's how old I am, right? But anyhow, I ended up seeing that, and then went the enlisted way, ended up putting my package in to go to SEAL training as an enlisted guy, but got accepted to the Naval Academy before I got accepted to go to SEAL training. And then kind of the rest was history.
Oh, wow. Now, looking back, The Rock inspired you.
Yeah.
Now, how different was that once you actually got there to when you saw in Hollywood? How different was it for you? Like culture shock?
Well, some of the technology wasn't quite as advanced as it was in the movies. Probably there now. It's probably now 2025 is probably where it was in the movies in 1995. But the camaraderie was there. Some of the tactics were there. I mean, you see a little bit of it in the movie, but man, the brotherhood, the elite group that we were a part of, and the fact that we would have done anything for anybody else on our team, on our platoon, that was what I was searching for. And you see little glimpses of it in the movie, but I would say in actuality, real life, it was actually better than what I saw in the movies as far as that aspect. The technology and some of the Hollywood stuff, it is what it is. But brotherhood, I mean, the real thing, we have a saying in the SEAL teams, LLTB, is long live the brotherhood. And I tell you, I'm still on a text thread with guys from my first platoon back in 2002, 2003. And we're still brothers, and we keep in touch. We know when, birthdays of kids are, we know when, somebody passes away or something, man. We're a pretty tight knit group.
Awesome. Yeah. It's good to have that, brotherhood. I still keep in contact as well.
Yeah.
John. So it's awesome. So in your youth, you involved a lot of stuff, school, music, sports, church. Which lessons carried over in your military career from all those?
Yeah, I would say a couple of them from school and then being in athletics. Hard work, the hard work ethic kind of came out into the military, and I retired in 2020, and that hard work ethic is still there. But I also say the sense of integrity. I've told this story on a couple of pods too, so stop me if you've heard it, Bradley. But in high school, I mentioned that I ran track and cross country, and back then the races were on Saturday, and then they would print the results on Sunday morning in the newspaper, right? And I remember one race in particular that I did really well, and I wanted to pick up the results in the newspaper on Sunday morning. And my dad drove me to Walmart, and there was the newspaper stand machine that you would put like a quarter in, you would open up, and then you could just grab as many papers as you wanted, right? It's based on the honor system. And I remember putting one quarter in and grabbing like 10 papers. One quarter was supposed to only buy one paper, but I grabbed like 10 of them. And I came back to the car, and my dad looked at me. He's like, "What did you just do?" I said, "I got some newspapers." He's like, how many of those did you pay for? And I said, 1. He's like, "How many do you have there?" I said, 10. And he went back to that newspaper machine and put another 9 quarters in. And that little lesson in integrity I carried through the entire time as a military member, and now as a entrepreneur in the civilian space, and as a father and a husband. I think work ethic, integrity, discipline, those are all things that I learned at a very young age in music, in athletics, in school, in church, and they helped me a lot in the military. And then they were honed. I'd say all those aspects were further honed within the military.
Wow, that's an awesome story. That your dad can instill that with you early on, and that probably shaped a big part of you all through the military career.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Remember it like it was yesterday.
Not only that, man, that says a lot about your dad.
Oh yeah, man. Right. My mom and dad are my heroes. They're still around 82 and 81. Mm-hmm. And they're riding their bikes every day, and they're living life, man. But yeah, my dad is raised. I mean, this is back in South Africa. He was sent off to boarding school when he was 6 years old. Yeah. And his parents worked a farm out there, and he was raised with very strict rules. I can't imagine now, like my son, again, he's 6 years old. I can't imagine sending him off to boarding school and only seeing him once every couple of months or something. But yeah, my dad was sent away, and he had a crazy work ethic instilled in him really early. That integrity kind of beat into him, not literally, at least I hope not, beat into him while he was at that boarding school, and then he carried it forward. Yeah, I like to think that I'm modeling something that he taught me back then.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So just to talk about your military experience, what was your first role after commissioning into the Navy?
Yeah, so unlike the Army Special Forces, which you guys are clearly familiar with, where Army, you got to go and do infantry stuff first, and then you can go into the Green Beret and selection course and everything else. Within the Navy, you have the opportunity to go straight into SEAL training. So I graduated the Naval Academy in May of 2001, the last peacetime class for 20 plus years, and went straight out to SEAL training, BUDS, basic underwater demolition SEAL training. So went through the 6-month training class out there, then went through the follow-on kind of gentleman's training, which is called SEAL qualification training. That's where it's no longer kind of a crucible. It's more of a, hey, let's get these guys ready to be SEALs. Went through that, but when you're going through all that, you're a leader. You're a boat crew leader, you're a class leader, you're some type of leader. So you're using your leadership skills and lessons along the way, and then again honing them as well. But once you get through that, then you go to a SEAL team straight from there. I went to what's called SDV school, SEAL Delivery Vehicle. So it's basically a mini submarine. So I went to that school down in Panama City, and then went from there to my first SEAL team, which was SDV Team 2, so SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 2 in Little Creek, Virginia. And I was an assistant platoon commander. So, I was the third officer. So there was a platoon commander, an assistant platoon commander, and then there was me. And technically I was an assistant platoon commander, but I was the third guy. So really, I was part of the E5 mafia, man. It was like, even as an 01 and soon to be an 02, I hung out with my E5s, man. It was awesome.
So I know being part of any elite organization has to take some resilience, some resolve. So was there anything during the school that kind of tested your resilience while you was in there?
Oh yeah. I got tested time and time again. I got tested when I was at the Naval Academy because I'd been enlisted for a year. So I'd been away from academics and athletics. So I was thrown in freshman year where chemistry is heavy, calculus is pretty heavy. And man, I hadn't touched that stuff in a while. That I struggled with. I almost quit because of how bad I was struggling. But had an upperclassman kind of taught me through it and helped me get some mentoring and tutoring. And I was able to be vulnerable enough to be like, hey, you know what? I need help. I can't do this on my own, and I need help. So that was a learning point for me, is, hey, learning to ask for help. Like, there's this great book out there. It's a real short book. It's like a graphical novel. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it's this boy who can talk to these animals. And he talks to the horse and he says, "What's the bravest thing you ever said?" And the horse says, "Help." And the horse says that by asking for help, it's not quitting, it's refusing to quit. And I always thought that was great. That was a lesson there at the academy. Hey, you got to ask for help. And I asked for help time and time again through the entire time there. Ended up graduating, then went out to SEAL training. And man, there's no way you can get through SEAL training without having your resilience tested. You're going to get, tested physically. You're going to get tested mentally. You're going to be cold. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be tired. But I remember for me in particular, the thing that I struggled with the most, I'm 6 foot. I'm 6'2". I was 6'3" back then. Shrunk a little bit, right? But 6'3", and I was a good runner and I was a good swimmer. But the obstacle course, I absolutely sucked on. And there's one obstacle called the rope swing. Sorry, there is a rope transfer, but that's a different obstacle. Rope swing. You come, you run, and you grab this rope and you swing kind of like Tarzan, and you land on this other platform, and then you run down that. And I could never get that right. And I mean, it was to the point where I was under this big time microscope from all the instructors. They're like, "What is wrong with you, sir? Why can't you get this?" And I was like, man, maybe I don't belong here. And here again, I asked for help. I saw this one guy that was really good at it. I was like, "Hey man, would you mind coming in on the weekend to show me how to do this properly?" And came in on a Saturday. In SEAL training, you get the weekends off. Came in on a Saturday and he showed me just the technique. And once I had that technique, I could get it. But man, I had myself convinced that I could not do it. And that I was going to get run out of training because of that. And then, yeah, I mean, the rest of the time, hell week, 5 days of pretty much nonstop physical training. They're in your face, just like, at some of the other military schools that we all go through. But yeah, you get knocked down, but every time you get back up. And I'll tell you again, the piece that helped me to get back up was the fact that I was able to ask for help. But I didn't learn that until I was a freshman at the academy, that asking for help was okay. And I know we'll get to this here in a bit, but that is what has led me to do what I'm doing now is helping others with kind of finding their identity after leaving the military, finding a sense of purpose, finding a tribe, but also finding themselves. Because a lot of the time we don't pause enough and we're not quiet enough in our minds to really know who we are. And that's something that required me to ask for help. And now I want to change the narrative and change the kind of the stigma around asking for help. Get people, hey, ask for help. Ask for help. It's not quitting. It's asking for help so that you can continue. So, yeah, I think that's where my resilience got tested several times.
Okay. And then how long after that before you graduated SEAL training, then you found yourself starting going through your numerous deployments?
Yeah. So graduated BUD/S June 28th of 2002, graduated SQT in February of 2003, went out to STV school, and then got to my STV team. It must have been May or June of 2003, and then did workups, training, jump training, dive training, maritime training, shooting, CQB, CQC, all the things that you would imagine. And then didn't actually deploy to a combat deployment until 2005. I went out to United Arab Emirates, did some training out there, joint combined exercise training, the JSETs. Went out or down to Panama, the country, not the city, and spent some time with them down there. And my first combat deployment was March or April of 2005. I deployed to Afghanistan, out to Bagram, and we had on the Bagram base, we had a smaller compound called Camp Olet. That was my first deployment, and it was only a 4-month deployment, but it ended with ended on a bad note. So Operation Red Wings, if you ever heard of Operation Red Wings, the lone survivor story, we lost 11 SEALs and 8 Army Night Stalkers on that mission. And that was the end of the deployment for me. I came back with, if you know, Michael Murphy, Medal of Honor recipient, and Danny Dietz, Navy Cross recipient. I came back with their bodies, escorted them home. And that was the end of my first deployment. And that first deployment was kind of a mix of a combat and administrative deployment. I was out doing surveillance and reconnaissance missions and some direct assault missions, but I was also working in the Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force, the CJSOTF there in Bagram.
Yes, sir. So I heard you mention Operation Red Wing, which I'm not going to have you go through that story in its entirety. Yeah. But what about after the mission? You know, yeah. I know it had a deep impact on you. So
sure did.
So how did you feel after that? You know, it was over, but the thoughts that went through your mind, how did that take a toll on you?
Yeah, I mean, that mission changed my life. And, you know, for that particular mission, I was in the CJSOTF. So I was behind a computer. I was on radios. And when I tell people that, they're like, well, how did that mission affect your life? Because you weren't even out there. And I said, well, that's why it affected my life, because I wasn't out there, right? You guys will, I'm sure, appreciate this, right? When you train for combat and you know your brothers are out there on the battlefield, where do you want to be? You do not want to be in the Joint Operations Center on the radios. You want to be out there on your gun on the battlefield with them. And because I wasn't, and then because of how things went, we ended up losing those 19 guys. You know, I've traveled back with Murph and with Dietz, their bodies, and I went back, and when we landed in Dover, you know, Murph's parents were there. I want to say his fiance was there. I forget exactly, but we brought Murph back to them, and then I jumped in a rental car from Dover and drove back with the flag that Danny had been recovered under. So they recovered him on the battlefield, brought his body bag back, but it was covered with the flag. And I took that flag back to his widow, and seeing her and seeing the widows of the other guys who had passed, knowing that I knew them and knew their kids, and you know, they were never going to see their husband or father again. I carried a lot of survivor's guilt. I still carry it, but I've learned to manage it. But yeah, that caused survivor's guilt that I tried to box up and kind of put it away to never be dealt with again. And I jumped straight into work. I was like, okay, well, what's the next platoon going to look like? And this point, I'd moved up from assistant platoon commander to platoon commander. So I was the head honcho of this group of guys, 16 guys or so. And my goal was to get them combat ready for Afghanistan, Iraq, or wherever we ended up going. And man, I was running and gunning through that whole training cycle. And then we deployed. We actually ended up deploying off the coast of Somalia. And then I came back from that deployment. My then wife, now ex-wife, she had some medical challenges, and I flew back from that deployment early. And that's when it kind of hit me, was because I took some time to pause and kind of focus on myself and focus on my family, which was just me and my wife then. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And from that point on, I was secretly addressing it by, you know, drinking alcohol. And I went to go see some docs, and I got some prescription medication, and I abused those. And, you know, it was my prescription or somebody else's prescription, and got into a very dark place and was there for a while. And then did some more combat deployments, went off and on alcohol, you know, found church again, fell out of church, all sorts of ups and downs. And then went to counseling when I was in a really dark spot. So this is now 10 years later. And I saw this counselor, and he said, I want you to try something different. I know you're on all these medications. I know you're abusing alcohol. I want you to try something different. I was like, okay, well, what is it? What other pill you got, doc? He says, I want you to try meditation. I want you to try mindfulness. And I laughed in his face, man. Cause I was like, hey, I'm this big tough guy. and meditation's not for me. And so he said, well, what if I had a pill that I could give to you? And this part's going to sound a little rehearsed because this is a story that I tell up on stage. But he said, what if I had a pill that I could give to you that would change your performance? It would change your performance personally and professionally, physically and mentally. And you guys, being from your background, you understand within high performing elite military teams, you're always looking for something that's going to give you an edge, right? An edge over the enemy on the battlefield, or an edge over your buddy right next to you, right? So John, you probably look for an edge over Bradley, and Bradley, you probably look for an edge over John. But the edge was not a pill. It was mindfulness and meditation. So I decided I'd try it out. And to keep a long story from getting too long, after several months of practicing, it did change me. It changed my life. And I will go as far as to say that it ultimately saved my life. And so now that's what I do, is I pay it forward by sharing what I consider to be life-saving practices.
If you can, just for a moment, can you tell me what you mean by what is mindfulness?
Yeah, sure, man. Good question, because people use that word a lot these days. So a lot of people equate mindfulness to meditation, or meditation to mindfulness, and they're not necessarily the same. The way that I think about it is, mindfulness is like this big old circle. Within that, you've got a mindful conversation like we're having right here, right? We're present. We're paying attention to what one another is saying. We don't have 25 windows open on our computer. We're not texting on our phone while we're talking. We're here in the moment. That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is being intentionally aware of the present moment without any judgment. And that present moment could be what it is you're feeling physically, what it is you're feeling mentally, what it is you're feeling emotionally. And when I say without judgment, that means like if you're feeling happiness, that's great, but you don't say, hey, this is what I've got to hold on to. Happiness is here, but it's probably not going to last forever. You're like, okay, don't fear that it's going to go away. I'm not judging it. If it's pain or anger or sadness that you're feeling, don't judge that. Don't think, oh, well, this is a feeling that I got to push away. This is where I'm at right now. But guess what? Just like happiness is impermanent, so is sadness, so is anger, so is this pain. So just not judging it, just experiencing it. So that's mindfulness. You can have a mindful walk. You can have a mindful talk, like I said, mindful drive. And then meditation is a small part of that larger circle. Meditation is a formal practice where you sit down or you stand or you lay down and you set aside some time to focus on some type of anchor. And when I say anchor, I mean it could be your breath. It could be a mantra, just a saying that you say over and over and over in your mind. It could be a body scan, like noticing the feelings in your head down to your toes, and vice versa. There's a whole lot of different types of meditation, but meditation helps you to be more mindful in your life. And then when you are more mindful, meditation becomes easier, but they're not necessarily the same. They're just tied to one another. Hope that made sense.
Yes, sir. It was, that was a great example. And I know we do a lot of elite organizations do mindfulness.
Yeah, they do, man.
Sure. Yeah, I was surprised that even going places like what you tell yourself mattered over and over again.
It matters. Big time, man. Yeah, that rewires your brain to start seeing yourself differently, man. Absolutely.
I think the best thing you said too was over time. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we want that pill to click in right then and there, but it's the programming. The programming is what makes you, who you are, today. So you got to start with what you tell yourself. So
amen, brother. Yeah, man. Like we end up being the words that we say to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It definitely takes time, man. Consistency. It's just like hitting the gym, right? If you go to the gym one time, you work out 2 hours. Hey, that's great. Good on you. But if you work out 15, 20 minutes a day for 2 months, you're probably going to feel better than just after that 1 2-hour workout.
Yeah, man. And before I turn it over to Big Pen for his next question, I want to say thank you for your service, brother.
Well, back at you, man. Back at you both.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so what year did you officially retire, John?
So I retired in August of 2020, right at the height of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. Which was weird, man. Like, I joined the service in 1996, retired in 2020. I had 4 years of school there when I was at the Naval Academy. But, I went to all these retirement ceremonies, saw my friends retire, saw my mentors retire. It's kind of like a closure to your career.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit and retirement ceremonies went away. So I literally, Bradley, I retired. I left Virginia Beach driving out in my family and I in our RV, and my retirement was a text message from a boss saying, "Thanks for your service." That was it, man. And so I don't know if you can see this thing behind me over here. It's kind of like your guys' military paraphernalia behind you. I just had that made in the last year. It's kind of a shadow box, but really it's a 60 mic box that opens up and it's got all that stuff in it. And that was kind of my retirement gift to myself. Instead of having a retirement ceremony, I had that. But what I missed about the retirement ceremony, so I got divorced but got remarried. No kids from my previous marriage, but I got 3 kids now, and I only had 2 when I retired. But I didn't get an opportunity to thank my wife, to thank my mom and dad, to thank my kids, to thank all the men and women that I worked with before, because that's really, as you guys well know, that's what a retirement's about. It's not about the person retiring. It's more about that person having the opportunity to say thank you to everyone else. I didn't have that opportunity. So that's another thing that I use social media for these days, is to thank the people that I worked for. And I say the people that I worked for very intentionally as well, because yes, I may have been the commander or whatever over them in the hierarchy or the organizational chart, but as a leader, that's your job. Your job is to work for them. Yeah, you may task them, but you are the person responsible for enabling them and empowering them and removing obstacles and impediments that's preventing them from doing that job. And if anybody sees it any other way, they're not a true leader. But yeah, the lack of a retirement ceremony was kind of a weird thing. August of 2020.
Yeah, man. So you often describe your transition uniform as like harder than expected.
Yeah.
What was the big surprise in transition to civilian life?
Yeah, man. So we all hear about military transition being difficult, right? And I retired in 2020. In spring of 2018, one of my former bosses, who has since become a really close friend of mine and a mentor, he sits me down. He knew that I was going to be retiring in 2 years. This was clearly before COVID ever happened. And he said, "Jon, what is it that you want to do?" I said, I don't know, boss. I got plenty of time to figure that out. He's like, "That last 2 years is going to go by like in the blink of an eye. So you need to start thinking about what it is you want to do." And he said, "Hey, you need to have like 50, 100 cups of coffee with people in different industries, sitting down, talking with them and be like, hey, what do you do? Tell me about the industry. How'd you get into it? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? These kinds of things." So I started talking with people in all these different industries, and I transitioned out August 2020, retired out, went and worked in the nonprofit space. Did great work for this nonprofit that is no longer around, called Veterans Path. They were teaching mindfulness and meditation to veterans, and they have since started teaching it to transitioning service members as well. Great work. So the administrative transition actually wasn't that tough because of, TAPS, because of organizations like the Commit Foundation and the Honor Foundation and American Corporate Partners and all these different transition programs that are out there now. They're fantastic. So if you're listening and you're soon to be transitioning, look out, because there are tons of resources out there for you. But the one thing, Bradley, that I found to be the toughest thing was not, hey, what do you wear to an interview? What does your resume look like? Any of that. The toughest thing that I experienced was what I felt was like I had my team. Like I'd abandoned them, and then on the same coin, the other side of that coin, they had abandoned me. So I'll explain. So we're all team, it might have been guys changing from one team to another, but you're still part of a grander machine, if you will, right? You guys were in the Army. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? And then you get out and you're no longer part of that machine, and that machine keeps rolling. It keeps doing what it's supposed to do, right? It's supposed to be here to protect and serve this country. And now you're no longer doing that. You're no longer part of the machine. So you kind of feel abandoned by that machine that kept on marching, kept on moving. But at the same time, you know that your brothers and sisters are still part of that machine, still putting their lives on the line potentially. I mean, I've lost brothers and sisters since I retired. And I know that when they passed away, I was, maybe sitting in the coffee shop line getting my coffee and asking for it a certain way. And they were in harm's way. And so that psychologically was the hardest part of the military transition for me. Yeah, there's the proverbial loss of purpose, loss of mission, loss of identity, loss of tribe. I get all that, and I definitely felt that. But it wasn't just the loss of all that. It was the fact that they were still doing the hard work and I was not. And that was a psychological part of the transition that nobody had ever talked to me about. And I think we're doing our transitioning service members a disservice by not talking about that.
So what helped you mentally move forward with all that?
Yeah, I think trying to pay it forward. So speaking to folks who are going into the military, a lot of people reach out. Hey, I'm going in the Navy. I'm going into the Naval Academy. I'm going into SEALs. Hey, what can you tell me? So sitting down with them, right? Tons of people sat down with me before I entered the service. Tons of people sat down with me as I was leaving the service. And so now I try to sit down with them and pay it forward. I work in a couple of nonprofits, both actively and on their boards, to work with veterans and their mental health. And then I run this podcast called Men Talking Mindfulness, where I try to, with my co-host, talk to guests and talk about topics that are going to be helpful for not just service members, but anybody. So I may not be serving on the battlefield anymore, but I feel as though I'm still serving just out of uniform. And I think that for a service member, if you've ever served or if you've ever been a first responder or public servant of any sort, man, that service ends up in your DNA. And when you don't have it anymore, you're like, what do I do? And yeah, again, that's the loss of purpose, but the loss of purpose and the psychological shift of abandonment that if you can find a team that is one that you can be a part of, and then two, that is serving a great purpose. I think that's how I got past that.
Awesome. I was always curious. So we all transition. So whenever you're going through BUDS, Hell Week and all that type of stuff, it kind of teaches you a certain leadership and being resilient. Did that help all through your military career?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it helped in my military career, but I think it's also helped in my civilian life. And an example that I give when I get similar questions is, BUDS, the uniform inspections, the room inspections, all the different things. Again, like I know you guys have done, it taught you attention to detail, but it also taught you to be ready to face the consequences of failure, or it taught you how to put up with. I mean, there was no way you were going to pass these inspections, right? So you kind of have to set yourself up for, okay, well, I'm gonna do as much as I can, but I'm not gonna go spend my entire weekend preparing my uniform or the room because I know inevitably I'm gonna fail this inspection and I don't want to waste my time. But I still want to pay attention to detail, and I want to be prepared for. I'm sure you guys have heard the term VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. VUCA. You want to be prepared for those situations, VUCA situations. And those pop up on the battlefield. They pop up in civilian life too. And the one that sticks out in my mind more so than any other is when my now 8-year-old little girl when she was 6 months old. A massive tumor was identified on her liver. And we had to go up to Boston Children's Hospital to have her operated on. I mean, she's like this big, right? Not very big, 6 months old. And I'm just thinking, like, in my mind, okay, a surgeon is going to open up my daughter and go in there and remove a tumor. And there's, veins and arteries, and they're all so tiny. It's all right there on top of one another. But I didn't really have a choice. My choice was, okay, well, let everything grow, and there's a chance that she may not live, a good chance, or we go and we get her operated on, and there's a good chance that she will live. And I think that military training actually prepared me mentally and emotionally to turn my daughter over to the surgeon and be completely out of control and just put my faith in somebody else, just like you would put your faith in a brother or sister next to you on the battlefield. I'd learned to put my trust and faith in somebody else. And I think that's carried through to this day. Like, I feel that I'm a stronger dad because of it. I'm a stronger husband. I like to think that I'm just a better man because of it. Now, I'm not saying that if you don't have some type of military training or military background that you're a slacker or that you're not going to be a good person. But for me and me alone in this particular story, the military, I think, was a big chunk of forming the man that you're speaking to today. And hopefully you guys and other people will see that man as a good guy.
Oh, absolutely. So if you could go back and talk to your younger self right before you transition, what's one conversation you have that like the stuff you know now, what was the conversation you had?
Yeah, I'd like to think, I took things real seriously. Like, again, I'm sure as we all enter the military, you're like, well, I want to be the number one performer in boot camp. I want to be the number one performer in this. I don't want to ever get yelled at. I don't want to ever fail an inspection. And again, no one gets through any type of military training without failing. And I'd like to tell that kid, that 18-year-old, almost 19-year-old kid that went into the Navy in 1996, don't take things so seriously. Yes, you're preparing for war. Yes, you're preparing to enter into the military and be part of an organization that puts themselves in harm's way. But at the same time, if you're folding your socks wrong and you get hit on an inspection for that, don't beat yourself up. If your shoes aren't perfectly polished and you get hit on an inspection, hey, did you do the best that you could? So I think I took a lot of things to heart. I would do the best that I could on everything, and I would still fail. And then I would say, I am a failure, right? John, you were talking about earlier, the things that you say to yourself, how they rewire your brain. Well, when you say positive things, they rewire your brain. Well, when you say negative things, you tell yourself, I'm a failure, then you start believing that. And so I'd like to go back and tell that kid, hey, you're going to fail, but don't take them so seriously. Learn from them. Take those failures and learn from them and grow from them.
That's going back. That's kind of like something that you learn because they gave you impossible tasks. They knew you couldn't. They knew you couldn't do it, just so you can experience failure. Do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I know for a fact because first freshman year at the academy, you're a plebe, and the upperclassmen run you through training. Well, then a couple of years later, I'm an upperclassman, and I run the freshmen coming through their plebe summer and their plebe year. And I know for a fact the things that I was assigning them, there was no way to humanly finish that list of things in a given day. There was no way to memorize all the things that we asked them to memorize. There was no way to clean everything to the standard that we were, quote unquote, expecting. There was no way. And again, I think that does, in fact, prepare people to realize that they're going to fail and there's some tasks they're not going to accomplish. But then what? When you fail, then what? And I think that's a huge learning point that a lot of people miss in their first couple of years in the military is, hey, yeah, I failed, but that doesn't make me a failure.
Right. So let's get into life after the boots. So now you currently like you're teaching mindfulness, you're coaching, you're also running a podcast. So explain some of these roles and how they helping heal you personally today.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I will tell you again, paying it forward is hugely healing. Seeing somebody else who's hurting take something that you learned and apply it in their lives to feel better or to perform better or to not feel as bad. I mean, I got a text earlier from this guy. It said, last week was life-changing for me because I got a chance to speak in front of this group. I tell you what, man, that it feels good to get a message like that, but it's also incredibly cathartic to know that your pain wasn't for naught. Like my pain, I felt that, I experienced it, but now I'm helping either others heal from it or never have to experience it. So I think that's a piece of it. And yeah, man, you mentioned my coaching, my teaching mindfulness, my podcast. My poor wife, man, she works in the medical field, and people ask her like, what does your husband do now? He's a retired Navy SEAL. What does he do? And she's like, I'm not actually sure what he does because I'm doing something different every day. But I do some coaching, executive coaching, mindfulness coaching. I do some consulting, run a podcast called Men Talking Mindfulness that's out there to kind of open up men's minds to these practices because, man, we men are stubborn and we're not open to some of these practices that are out there. So that's the podcast. And then, I do some public speaking as well. But I'm looking at doing some career pivots here in the near future, but not entirely sure what that's going to look like. But the life after boots, man. First of all, I like the way you said that. I've never heard that, life after boots. But then the next thing is the great thing about life after boots is you're only limited by your imagination, right? You can go to school and pursue this. You can get voc rehab and pursue that. You can, if you want to, I don't know, start a coffee business, you can do that. I mean, clearly we've seen coffee businesses from veterans are hugely successful. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. It's only really limited by your imagination.
When I found myself like you, when it's time to describe what I'm doing, life after boots, I was everywhere, and I had to put at the top of the page after I listed everything I was doing. I just put entrepreneur. That's the best way to describe it.
That's right, man. That's right. That's exactly what it says on my LinkedIn now. It just says entrepreneur. I'm like, when people ask me, what does that mean? I'm like, it means a lot of different
I always tell somebody when they ask, what do you do? I was like, oh man, do you got time? Because it's so much. You can ask Penn. I always tell somebody, hey, you got time? Because it's gonna take a while.
Right,
It's not. My mind isn't an elevator speech. Like I'm gonna give you the whole word. So what inspired you to give the podcast?
So, Naval Academy guy, and I met this West Point guy. He and I were both class of 01. He had gotten out a couple of years before me. He did not retire, but he knew that I was getting out. And as much as we have the Army-Naval rivalry, we still have that brotherhood, that camaraderie, right? And he had gone on this yoga retreat a couple months before, and he was like, he comes to me, he's like, what are you looking at doing it when you retire? I was like, well, I'm going to see if I can turn teaching mindfulness and meditation into some kind of career. And he said, oh man, you got to meet this guy, Will. So Will's my podcast co-host. So when you're transitioning out of the service, you meet a lot of people, try to network and figure out what it is that you want to do. And I got introduced to a ton of people that I'll have a phone call with, a Zoom call with, a video call, whatever, or an in-person coffee with. And they were great conversations. But at the end, I would make a note and be like, okay, yeah, this is an industry that I'm considering. This is one that I'm not considering. This coffee was well worth it. Let's stay in touch with this person. This person was great. I appreciate it, but I probably will never talk to them again. But Will, my co-host, when we first got set up on an introductory call, he talked to me, and then at the end of the conversation, he'd be like, "When are we talking again?" Which I wasn't used to hearing that. So he's like, "When are we talking again?" I was like, "All right, well, let's talk again in another month." We'd talk again in another month. We'd be on the phone. We'd be talking about our own mindfulness and meditation journeys, things that we are, I don't know, enlightenment, things that we were struggling with, things that we saw worked really well, things that didn't work very well. We were sharing all these best practices, right? And then COVID hit, and him, Will, he's a yoga instructor. So his work went away like that, right? He had to go virtual. He had to pivot real quick to teaching yoga virtually. And he started doing Instagram live shows or whatever they're called. And I saw that he was having some pretty decent success with that. And so I reached out. I was like, "Hey, Will, man, you know the phone calls that we have every month? Why don't we just have those on Instagram live?" So it started out not even as a podcast. It started out as an Instagram live kind of show or whatever. And we had like 6 viewers. and then we figured out how to take the Instagram live audio and pull it over to a podcast. So if you're ever to listen to our show and you go back and listen to, like, I don't know, the first 15 episodes, it's all literally recorded on our phone, no microphones, no headphones, from Instagram live. The audio was terrible. There was no like planned format. We had no guests. It was just the two of us talking. And then we figured out how, okay, maybe Instagram live is not the platform. Maybe we should see if we can actually get a podcast going. So we had a couple guests on, and then people actually started to listen and pay attention. And then we're like, oh, well, maybe we can start doing video as well. And man, I know you guys have experienced this, man. Podcasting it's a passion project. Not a whole lot of money in it, but the payment that you get is from your listeners reaching out and being like, "Hey man, I needed to hear that today," or "I needed to hear from that guest," or "Hey, could you put me in touch with that guest because I want to talk to them a little bit more." And that payment, it's better than gold, man. Don't get me wrong. If somebody came with me and they're like, "Hey, we're going to give you some gold," that'd be nice too. But yeah, podcasting is a passion project for us. And it's been going on for a little over 5.5 years now. And yeah, man, we don't plan on stopping anytime soon. I'm sure you guys don't either.
And what's the name of the podcast?
It's Men Talking Mindfulness.
Okay, that's good. That's a good name too.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
It's a great name. And they can find you on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
Where?
we're on YouTube. Excuse me. We have our own YouTube channel, but we actually ended up getting picked up by this other channel called the Valor Media Network. Valor Media Network's out there. They've actually got a host of podcasts. There's like, I don't know, 10 or 15 different podcasts on there. And they sponsor our show now. So if you get on YouTube and you're wanting to watch a video of our show, you go to the Valor Media Network. If you could just want to go listen to it, we're on all the different podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify. You can listen to it on YouTube on our channel. But yeah, we're all over, man, on all the podcast platforms.
Okay. Oh, that's good to go. All right, Big Pen.
So you've got this motto, kind of order and discipline. You know, that guides your life.
Yeah,
how do you balance that with, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I'm laughing because you guys got kids.
Oh, I've got 5.
Yeah,
I just got Pen.
Well played. Well, my young kids, man, they're my pride and joy. But they're young kids, and order and discipline for an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. I can't come into the house and put my Commander McCaskell hat on, right? They don't respond real well to that. So order and discipline has worked good for me. It's worked good when I'm leading troops. It's worked well when I'm leading mature adults. But I have run into challenges trying to lead kids as a parent. I've run into challenges in trying to lead immature adults, right? And we've all run into them. Man, order and discipline is great when you're dealing with grown-ups, but order and discipline can be really difficult when you're not. And learning to tap into other leadership techniques, learning to tap into emotional regulation. Because I tell you, when I'm trying to tell a grown man what to do, and he's not listening, frustration can creep in real quick. So emotional regulation, which can come from mindfulness and meditation, is a big chunk in that. But yeah, order and discipline. I think there is a level. I'm actually writing, excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. Writing a book called Dial in Your Leadership, DIAL. And I know the jokes that are some of your listeners will be like, oh, great, another Navy SEAL book. Yep. But it's DIAL, and that's for discipline, integrity, authenticity, and listening. And I believe that, or learning. I believe those 4 things are key in developing your leadership ability. So discipline, like we just talked about. Integrity, I talked about before. Hey, doing what's right even when nobody's looking. Authenticity, you got to be your real self. If you show up as anybody else, your people are going to see through you pretty quickly. They're going to know that you're not showing up as your authentic self. And then learning. As a leader, you always got to be learning. You got to be asking questions. You got to be reading books. You got to be reaching out to your people and finding out from them, hey, what did you learn that worked, right? And we're going to do an after action right after we wrap up this call. What are you going to do that for? Why did you say you guys are doing that? Why do we do AARs in the military? So that you can learn and be better next time, right? And that's what a leader to me is somebody who is disciplined, has integrity, is authentic, and is always, always, always learning.
So you're a real busy man. You got your podcast, you got your entrepreneurship, you're a dad. What hobbies do you have outside of that?
Yeah, man. Well, the podcast that is funny enough. It started as a hobby and now it's become a job, but it's good. And again, I'm sure you guys felt that too. But yeah, I mean, I live in Colorado Springs. There's tons to do here year round, right? Like in the summer, I like going hiking and biking, just walking around with my kids. In the wintertime, skiing, getting up into the mountains, and just experiencing the cold weather. My wife has gotten into fly fishing here in the rivers, and I've started to really embrace that too. So yeah, I try to make some time and have some balance in my life. Getting to the gym, staying in good shape is still a hobby of mine. I have taken that to extremes at times, but I try to find some balance. I'm not in the SEAL teams anymore. I don't have to be crushing my soul every day in the gym. I can go to the gym for 20 minutes and get a workout in and still be okay. So yeah, I am a busy man, as we all are these days, but got to find some balance, man.
Absolutely. Now I want you to tell me a quick, you have a story about one of your bosses being lazy.
No. Yeah.
What was that lesson?
So if I use that in another podcast or if I posted about that, that's probably a harsh word, but he was disengaged. All right. So we were off the coast of Somalia, and I told you before, I was this third officer, this assistant officer in charge when I first got to the SEAL teams, and I was working for this one guy. And then my next platoon, he moved up and I moved up. So I was working for the same guy again, next rotation. Great guy, hard worker, always thinking forward. And on this deployment, I don't know what it was, but he became really disengaged, wasn't leading the troops, wasn't leading me, wasn't providing me any guidance, wasn't providing me any mentorship. And I was talking with his senior enlisted advisor, and I was like, hey man, what's up with this guy? He's like, yeah, I've seen it too. It's frustrating to me too. And so my senior enlisted advisor, his senior enlisted advisor, and me, we sat down with him and we did some reverse counseling. We counseled up the chain, which was super awkward. And to be honest, I was really scared because I I saw this guy as a kind of a superhero, and then during the deployment, he didn't fall apart, but he just became disengaged. He wasn't leading. And to sit down with him, he was also a friend of mine, even though he was my superior as far as the organizational chart. He was a friend of mine. And to do this felt very intimidating, to just use a good word. But funny, I messaged him yesterday, text message from him yesterday. And I still get messages from him saying, "You changed my life." So it's YCML. That's all he will say. It's just YCML. Like every 6 months or so, I'll get this from him. And I'm like, "Well, how did I do that?" The first time I ever got this, how did I do that? He's like, "Well, because you showed me that I wasn't holding myself to the standard. I wasn't holding the standard." And from that point, it was like a switch had been flipped. Initially, in the conversation, he was angry. But then as the conversation went on, he was like, "You know what, boys, you're right." And he led from then on. And man, he's one of the best leaders I know to this day.
Awesome. So when you hear the term train hard, but breathe easy,
Yeah.
what does that look like in action? Both
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, so my business is McCaskell Consulting, because I was not original at all. So when I left the military, I just named a consulting business after my last name. But then I've since rebranded it to Frogman Mindfulness. And that's me doing public speaking and coaching, executive coaching, consulting. But it's all about, I don't know if you can see this picture behind me, but it's a meditating special operator. And to me, we have to train hard. We have to push ourselves to and past our limits. But at the same time, we need to learn how to breathe easy. And what I mean by that is kind of what I was talking about earlier is don't take things so personally. You know, you're going to fail. And when you do, don't flip out. It's part of life. What can you learn from it? Okay, now take a step back, learn that, let's move forward. So that's breathing easy. But then the training hard is, okay, you got to train hard enough. You got to do things hard enough to fail. Like if you're doing things and you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. You're not pushing yourself. You're not pushing your team. So that's what the train hard, breathe easy is.
I love it. Awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah. So Jon, so how can the listeners contact you and follow your work?
Yeah. So I'm having my website redone right now. And hopefully by the time this show comes out, it's supposed to be live again next Wednesday. So hopefully by the time the show comes out, it'll be up and running again. But if you just get on your phone and you text the word mindful, MINDFUL, just one L, to the number 33777, you'll get a link sent to you, and you hit that link and it'll hit my email, my social media, my podcast, my YouTube channel, all the different things. But that's what I've found to be the easiest way. But if that doesn't work for some reason, you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. Jon MaCaskill, Jon with no H. How do you spell your name, Jon? Is there an H in there?
No H.
Oh, right on,
Jon.
man. Jon, that's right.
That's
right
it.
on. Yeah, man. So Jon with no H, and then last name McCaskell. If you look me up on LinkedIn, that's it.
And Jon, brother, we appreciate you for coming on the Swaggy Vet Podcast, sharing your story with our viewers, and just being inspiring gentleman that you are, and just having that what's the word I like to say? Just for having the intentional fortitude, and also just having the truth and honor that you was given passed to you from your father. That's very inspiring.
Oh, I appreciate that, Jon. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Jon, Bradley, it's been a great conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's been an honor, and you definitely left us with some good nuggets. I know our audience could definitely get some good feedback and get some good whatever you bestowed upon them. And we're just
Thanks, brothers. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for what you're doing too.
Yes, sir. Well, hey, y'all, we appreciate you for tuning in. Until the next one, stay swaggy, stay strong. Peace.